Hi, Seth. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nitin. It's great to be here.
Wonderful, Seth. Well, Seth, for our viewers and our audience who may not be familiar with you, could you please take a minute to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about what you do at the moment and what your background is?
Absolutely. My name is Seth Schachter. Prior to my current role, I was a strategy consultant for about 3.5 years in the precision medicine space, focused primarily on oncology, but touching on a few other areas. Currently, I am a senior market research manager at Guardant Health, focused in the early cancer detection space.
That's wonderful, Seth. Great work that you and your organization are doing. Um, Seth, when your leadership comes to you and says, great job, uh, what are they typically counting on you for?
I think that when our leadership says good job, what they're really looking for is that you're not just doing market research or generating the insights, but you're taking it and pulling it through. It's about being able to help shape the strategy and making sure that you're both distributing the findings and also getting feedback before you have the larger cross-functional readouts. And I think that's something that's particularly important because in my experience, and I imagine many people have run into this, if you go into a room with a point of view and recommendation, but you haven't spoken to everyone in the room in advance, there might be 4 or 5 different opinions of what that data means. But by circling with every single person before that, you're able to get their feedback and synthesize those findings and then be able to say, here's a recommendation where, as opposed to that scenario, everyone is nodding, everyone is on the same page, and coming out, they feel good about how to proceed with next steps.
That's a great experience share, Seth, that you've given, and I want to just double click on that for a minute because that is a challenge I have seen a lot of researchers struggle with. How do you get buy-in from internal stakeholders? How do you get people to take action on the results of your work, of the insights that you generate? And I think personalizing that contact, getting feedback from stakeholders early on is such an important vital piece of solving this puzzle. Something that we as a company also really like to talk about is impact, and I just
Mhm.
want to share that with our viewers as well. So when we talk about impact of work, we define it into business and personal impact.
Mhm.
Business impact is obviously, hey, we're doing this work. How does this move the needle? You know, for you, Miss or Mr. Stakeholder, right? And really understanding how it moves the needle for their unit, their team, their division. But a bigger piece that I think, Seth, that you touched on that I want to really underline for our viewers is the personal impact. Um, you know, the way we define personal impact, Seth, is how will this project, affect you personally? Does its success or failure have any impact on you? And Seth, I want to say this. When you ask these words, it's almost magical. Because what
Mhm.
happens is you'll have people say things like, this happened to me, some time ago, where one of our clients said, first of all, I really appreciate you asking me that question. No one's ever asked me that. And this project is really important because I got hired for this. Like this is on my job, right? It's
Yeah.
personal. And what that individual really appreciated was that by being transparent on what the high level of importance is, I am also now on the same page. I'm in sync on, oh, okay, we get it. This is really important for you, right? When you do it this way, Seth, what happens is, and I'm sharing this, this, but I'm just sharing this with our viewers. Um, People get aligned faster
Yeah.
because they look at it as, okay, now I've shared what's personally important for me. How do you align this for my personal importance? You may
Mhm.
also get responses like, it's just another day in the office. It's just one of those projects. not really a big personal impact on me, right? And it's important to know both aspects because as consultants, sometimes we also have to guide clients on, hey, if the business impact is not important, if it's not a huge personal impact, why are we even doing this?
Absolutely. And that's it's a very interesting point because and also, I mean, kudos to you and your team for doing that, because when in my experience, that can actually result in the project getting shut down once those questions come up.
Yeah,
But that's important because ultimately teams have limited resources, limited time, limited bandwidth. And so helping to support the overarching team in business by being able to ask those questions and say, is this really what we should be working on? Or, and if the answer is no, then being able to then follow up, well, what is the priority? Where do the time and resources need to be invested?
correct, correct. And you know, I mean, there is a time for being fearless because yes, you know, we as researchers, um, you know, obviously we want to fulfill the needs of our internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. We don't want to be pushing away projects or work, but you know, what we always guide our clients is, hey, it's better to be seen as a consultant, as a guide internally, as opposed to doing all the work, making all that investment, only to either see no action happen, or worse, someone says, I already knew this. You know, you didn't
Yes.
really do anything. You didn't really tell me anything that I didn't know, right? And so we feel, and what we recommend is it's much better to push away or guide people away, because at the end of the day, we as researchers, either, you know, as external agencies or you as internal experts, we need to be seen as guides and partners, you know,
Mhm.
and not just as another cost center. And so I think when we do it this way, we've seen that it's much better received. So I thought it was a great point that you raised, and I wanted to just double click on that. On another point, Seth, when you are guiding your teams internally, when you're meeting with them to understand their priorities, can you talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges that you typically face, especially when seen in context of, you know, optimizing processes or improving customer experiences?
Absolutely. I think probably one thing which most people experience as one of the largest challenges is that realistically, there's a lot of competing priorities that are always happening. And so when you're working on a project or working with a team, being able to communicate with them, not just about what is well, there's a few layers to it. There's in a specific project, helping to understand what is most important for you, and also what could potentially lead to either a large amount of action or inaction. Are there certain things where if we hear this, you need to be notified immediately, even while the project is partway through? Then, in addition to that, one thing that I find helpful, which I think is also a factor with it, is understanding their job and their other priorities. Because it might be a situation where they say, yes, this project is important to me, but I have 4 other major deliverables or objectives that I'm currently working on. And so while I want to give the right amount of time and energy to this project, you may not hear from me for a week or 2 weeks when you need feedback. And I think that's very helpful because at that point, you're able to have the discussions to figure out, how do we get this to work at that point? Do you want this project to run with less input and involvement and have set milestones where I check in with you? Is this something where maybe the project needs to be extended and we say, hey, this is going to be a bit of a slow burn instead of it being a standard project? Maybe it'll run longer so that you have a little more bandwidth later on. Or is there some other preference based on that? And I find that type of collaboration, generally it's positively received, because I think people also appreciate when you take that level of understanding of saying, yes, we're working together on this project, but I also know that you have your own role and responsibilities, and I want to help you overall, not just help you on this project.
Right, right. No, that's a great experience here, Seth. Um, I think aligning internally with, stakeholders' priorities and needs is so critical, not just in successful execution, as you know, but also in getting work done that truly matters, that will get acted upon. Uh,
Mhm.
in that context, Seth, we're big in really focusing on customer journeys. I want to ask you, when you're helping your organization better understand the patient journey, the customer journey, can you talk a little bit about how you go about it? How have you executed on journey projects, and what is the impact of doing that type of work?
Absolutely. So with that process, the initial component usually is going to be that scoping. So having the discussions with the right people to be able to say, hey, this is what we're interested in learning. And then also within that, going into what do we already know? What do we not know? And do you have a target objective? Are you just trying to understand the overall journey or a specific component? Or are you also trying to say, oh, at this decision point, I need to know how it branches. This is really the most critical component. Once I get them all aligned, then the next step is obviously just being able to find the right approach and methodology and making sure they feel comfortable with that. Timing, scoping, touch points, milestones, etc. And I think that then from there, when you're going through the project, just making sure to keep them in the loop. With customer journey and customer experiences, a lot of times I like hearing verbatims and actually listening into the interviews and hearing what they're saying. And sometimes you'll get those little bits of surprises or nuggets where you're thinking, oh, wow, we hadn't even considered that before. This is new information or potentially a new factor we need to be evaluating. And so making sure to circle with the team recording when things like that occur to be able to say, how does this affect what we know? How does this affect our research? And then also asking them, are you getting new information that affects it? Um, After that, similar to what I discussed before, once you have all the findings, you need to circle with your team in order to say, this is what I saw in the data, this is what I'm doing, this is what I think, based on you who may be involved in the project, but are in a different department and have a very different lens. Are we seeing the same thing and are we speaking the same language? And then ultimately being able to slim it down. Realistically, as you know, with insights and with research and customer journeys, it's a lot of information and it can be incredibly dense. But your leadership doesn't have time to read the entire thing. They probably want the 5-10 minute summary because you're probably one action item of many that they're going through in the day. So then being able to really distill it down to that executive level and say, okay, these are the like 3 to 5 most important things that we've learned. We have the backup if you want to hear more about it. And then most importantly, this is what we recommend to implement and proceed with based on these findings. And then depending on some of those, here are some potential risks, challenges, or things to just keep an eye on along the way.
You put in so much gold in that experience share set that I really appreciate it. And, I want to double click on a few items, but I'll say this. Yes, you know, uh, leadership requesting executive summaries and bite-sized nuggets is a request every researcher gets and has to deal with. I remember one time we had finished a mega huge project that's took almost, I would say, 5-6 months to complete, and we
Oh,
were
wow.
sitting in the boardroom with the senior leadership, and the CEO walked in, huge company, right? Fortune 50 company. And I remember the CEO said, "Hey guys, that's great. I know we have 2 hours, but," and he looked at me and said, "Hey, Nitin, so can you give me the Twitter summary of what I should be looking at?"
Yep.
It's like, you know, that was we had come in to present like a 200-page deck, right? And the CEO's asking me for the Twitter summary. And we had the Twitter summary prepared as well. And I said, "Hey, you just need to focus on this one item, and this is going to save you $40 million." And he said,
There you
"Oh,
go.
okay, now tell me more." And I said, "Hey, let's open the floodgates, right?" So sometimes it's just that hook, because a lot of times when they're saying, "Hey, give me the summary," what they're really looking for is, why should I spend my time with you, right?
Yes.
What is it that I need to be focusing on? And so you often have to look at that as a hook on, you know, hey, 40 million is a big deal for me, maybe not for you, but is this what, because that's the gist of this, right? This will help you save 40 million. Should we
Yep.
spend time on this or no? And so, that's the tone. Um, but I want to build a little bit on that as well, Seth, because I think the tone of this episode, this interview, has also been learning from you, your experience shares on how do we get stakeholders to take action to get buy-in early on. And I really
Mhm.
love all the steps that you take. Something that I also want to share with you and our viewers is, in building on those steps, in getting that stakeholder buy-in and getting senior leadership to act. We spoke about impact as well. We spoke about business impact, personal impact. Another item that I want to add to that is financial impact.
Yep.
And so the way we look at financial impact is, Seth, you talked about key moments and moments that matter. Now, in journey work and in research work in general, you obviously are able to pinpoint, key moments that matter, or moments of truth, as we call them. The thing about moments of truth, say, especially seen in context of journey work, as you know, is these moments of truth or key moments sometimes are transformative. And what I mean by that is, if you pay attention to them as an organization, if you can improve the customer's experience in those key moments, they transform into what we call as peak moments. Peak moments are, they're becoming your loyalist, you're doing it right. They're holding your hand throughout their buying journey, and their experience with you also optimizes. Moments where you don't pay attention, and they are key moments, they transform into pain points. And the
Yes.
problem
Very
with
true.
pain points, Seth, is, as you know, often they have a financial component to them. Those are, if you're interacting with a customer early on in their buying journey and you don't pay attention and it becomes a pain point, they abandon you and they go to the dance holding someone else's hand, right?
Hmm.
If they are further along in their business or buying journey with you, then they often buy less or they abandon sales in the middle. So what we do, Seth, what we have started doing for a while now is, we calculate the financial impact of those pain points. And the
Mm.
way we do that, Seth, is we ask customers, hey, so you're getting this pain point over here. Obviously, this is not helping you and you're getting pissed off. What are you going to do as a result of this pain point? And customers sometimes say, well, I'll buy less or I'll go with a competitor. Our next question then is, okay, well, how much would you have spent? How much are you going to spend with a competitor? And so
Hmm.
we calculate those financial, you know, we get those financial nuggets, and they're coming from the customer directly, right? So a company doesn't have to share any private confidential information with us. And then when we're telling the inside story, we're telling it translated into these financial, metrics, right? Okay, so Seth, I'll share this with you and viewers. It's one thing to tell leadership a story that says we should improve this because X% of our customers said they're not happy, right? But it's a whole different ball game to tell the story. We should improve this because this pain point is costing us X amount of dollars. And then there's this other pain point that's costing us X amount of dollars, right? The whole conversation changes, Seth. Then
Hmm.
it's no longer discussion on, should we, shouldn't we? Then it's a very business nuts and bolts kind of discussion. Oh, this is costing us so much. How much is it going to cost us to improve? Oh, it's going to cost us only so much. So, it elevates the storytelling and it makes it more actionable. So I loved what you had said, and I wanted to just provide this experience share as well.
Yeah. And to your point from earlier, when you showed up in the boardroom, when the Twitter summary says, here's the dollar value from it, all of a sudden, even if the friend had been, hey, I'm busy, I'm going to be here for a minute, and then I'm going to go, that whole conversation may end up actually happening once they've heard that summary. So definitely agreed.
Perfect, perfect. So, Seth, I know we're almost at the end of our time, but I wanted to ask you one final question. If you had the opportunity to improve any of the journey projects that you've done, is there anything that you would do different?
I think probably the biggest thing that I'm still refining, and I believe there's always room for improvement with every process, is figuring out the right level of engagement with the teammates and stakeholders, because realistically, that isn't a science, it's a bit of an art, because there's always going to be different needs, different experiences, different preferences and priorities. And so it's not really something you can templatize. It's something where you have to be able to say, based on the team composition and based on the people I'm working with, how am I going to do this in order to make sure that things are moving forward and we're providing the right insights about the journey or whatever else they're trying to understand.
That's a great summary and a great experience share as well, Seth. I think throughout this episode, you've laid out a lot of useful and tactful insights and experience shares that I think our audience can pick up and implement in their work right away. So I thank you for sharing that. And with that, we're at the end of this episode. So thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you for your time and take care.